The first warning came as a whisper through the comms, static mixed with a human child's scream. Sergeant Rhea froze, every instinct in her soldier's body turning to fire. The patrol had been routine until that sound. On the barren planet Kareth 9, nothing good ever began with a child crying. Rhea's squad spread across the ridgeline, rifles ready. The ground trembled faintly, a slow rumble moving closer from the desert plain. She spotted the heat signatures first. 6 alien mercenaries dragging a small human boy by the arm. The boy's clothes were torn, his face streaked with dust and fear. Around him strutted tall creatures with skin like obsidian glass and eyes burning orange in the dying sun. They laughed, sharp metallic sounds that echoed across the sand. But they weren't alone. Behind the boy, low to the ground, something moved through the dust. A shape compact and muscular, fur matted with grit, eyes gleaming with raw hate. Rhea had seen it once before on Earth's training vids. It was a honey badger, though this one looked like it had been forged out of nightmares. The mercenaries didn't notice. They kicked the boy forward toward a transport pod half buried in the sand. One raised a spear gun, taunting him. Then the air shifted. The beast let out a growl so deep the sand seemed to vibrate. Every head turned. What happened next was so fast that even Rhea's combat HUD barely caught it. The honey badger launched itself with a snarl that sounded too big for its size. It hit the nearest alien's leg, teeth finding flesh under armor plates. The mercenary screamed, spun, and fell. The others opened fire, but the creature was already gone, moving like smoke between them. Rhea signaled her unit. "Move in, protect the kid!" They sprinted down the ridge as chaos erupted below. The aliens shouted orders, firing wildly, plasma bolts slicing the air. The child ducked under the wreckage of an old mining crawler, covering his head. The honey badger burst out again, claws wet, eyes reflecting the weapon flashes like 2 shards of moonlight. It didn't retreat, didn't flinch. Every shot made it angrier. By the time Rhea reached the child, 2 mercenaries were down. The others backed away, one dragging the wounded, another shouting into a comlink for reinforcements. Rhea knelt beside the boy, checking him. "You hurt?" He shook his head, still trembling. They killed my teacher." His small voice cracked. "I didn't do anything." Rhea looked at the bodies, then at the honey badger now circling them protectively, its fur bristled, muzzle red. She had no idea how a child on a frontier colony ended up bonded with a creature like that. But she knew one thing. The mercenaries had just picked a fight with the wrong species. Above them, a ship screamed through the clouds, metallic and cruel, the insignia of the Tar Dominion, a syndicate known for enslaving frontier settlers. Rhea cursed under her breath. "We've got more incoming." The squad took cover among the rocks as the dropship descended. Plasma cannons lit the sky. The honey badger stood its ground, teeth bared at a machine 1,000 times its size. The child gripped Rhea's sleeve, eyes wide. "He'll protect us." Something about the way he said it, quiet, sure, like a fact of nature, made her believe him. The ship's ramp opened. Heavily armored aliens poured out, weapons raised. Rhea's team returned fire, the air filling with blue plasma streaks. One alien aimed a grenade launcher at their position. Before Rhea could shout a warning, the honey badger charged again, straight toward the enemy line. It didn't dodge or hide. It just went, a streak of fury and dust. The grenade exploded midair, throwing dirt and flame skyward. Out of the smoke came the same shape, fur singed, eyes burning brighter. It hit the nearest soldier's throat, tearing through armor like foil. The squad hesitated, unnerved by something their technology couldn't understand. The creature didn't fight for glory. It fought for its human. Rhea's comm crackled. "Command to ground team, backup inbound, ETA 6 minutes. 6 minutes was a lifetime out here. She glanced at the boy. "What's his name?" "Claw," he whispered. "He's my friend." The battle raged hotter. Rhea's ammo counter blinked red. She threw a smoke charge, covering their retreat to an outcropping. The honey badger followed, bloodied but unbowed. It licked its claws, growling low at the skyship still firing overhead. Then the boy did something strange. He stepped forward, whistled once, a soft, broken note. The honey badger turned toward him instantly, calmer. The bond between them wasn't tamed by command. It was built from trust. Rhea had seen elite war beasts respond to neural chips and implants, but this was raw connection. The universe had spent centuries mocking humans for their soft hearts. Now it would learn how dangerous compassion could be. A blinding light flared from the east. The relief shuttle finally broke through the clouds, guns blazing. Dominion troops scattered, some retreating to their transport. Rhea's team pushed forward, cutting down stragglers. The honey badger was already among them, unstoppable. When the last alien fell, silence crawled back over the desert. The boy knelt beside his creature, hugging its neck despite the blood. "You did good," he whispered. The honey badger let out a low rumble, more purr than growl. Rhea exhaled, lowering her rifle. Around her, the squad began tending to wounds, scanning the wreckage. "We'll take you both to base," she said gently. "You're safe now." The boy looked up. "No one's ever safe," he said. "Not from them. But they'll be afraid now." She believed him. The Dominion might recover, might send more ships, but their legend was already cracking. Across the stars, stories would spread of a child, a beast, and the day a galactic power met something older than fear. As the shuttle lifted off, Rhea watched the pair sit side by side, framed by the firelit dunes. The honey badger stared out the viewport, unblinking, as if memorizing every light in the void. Whatever war was coming next, humanity wasn't going to face it alone. The days after the attack on Careth 9 passed in uneasy silence. The Dominion ship wrecks still smoked on the horizon, their black metal carcasses half buried in the sand. Sergeant Rhea and her squad stayed near the colony, helping rebuild what little had survived. But every night whispers traveled faster than the wind. Whispers about the boy and his beast. The soldiers had seen many strange things in the galaxy, but nothing like that honey badger. Some said it was genetically enhanced. Others swore it wasn't natural at all, that it had something human inside it. Loyalty made flesh and fury. The truth was simpler. The creature loved that child, and that made it unstoppable. The boy's name was Eli. He spoke little, always sitting beside his companion, feeding it pieces of dried meat from his ration pack. The honey badger, Claw, stayed close, eyes scanning anyone who came too near. Even the grizzled Marines gave it space. Rhea noticed something new each day. It wasn't just a beast. It listened, learned, and even seemed to understand when someone lied. Once, when a Dominion prisoner shouted insults about humans, Claw turned his head sharply and let out a low growl that silenced the entire camp. News of Careth 9 didn't stay contained. Human traders spread the story from outpost to outpost. Soon the phrase, "never threaten a human child," became a saying among pilots, mercenaries, and even alien diplomats. Most dismissed it as propaganda, a tale made to make humans seem dangerous. But those who had fought the Dominion knew better. Fear had entered the stars, and it wore the shape of a small striped animal with teeth like blades. Rhea received orders from command to bring the boy to the human capital ship Resolute Dawn for questioning. Officially, he was a civilian survivor. Unofficially, he and his creature had become a security concern and a potential weapon. Rhea hated that word. She'd seen what happened when people tried to weaponize loyalty. When the shuttle landed, Eli didn't want to go. "They'll take him away," he said softly. Rhea knelt beside him. "No one's taking him, kid. Not while I'm around." The boy looked up, unsure whether to believe her. Claw pressed his head against the boy's shoulder as if sensing his fear. It was strange. The creature never acted like an animal. It moved like a soldier protecting a comrade. The Resolute Dawn orbited high above, a floating city of steel and firepower. As the shuttle docked, hundreds of crew members lined the hangar to see the death beast of Careth 9. Cameras flashed, soldiers whispered. Rhea saw the same pattern she'd seen too many times, curiosity turning into arrogance. Someone laughed. "That's it? Looks like a fat weasel." The honey badger turned, and the laughter stopped. A single growl rolled through the hangar, and every trained soldier froze. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Rhea hid a grin. "Told you," she muttered. Admiral Kale, a tall man with a voice like steel, approached them. "Sergeant Rhea, good work. The boy and his companion will be taken to Research Deck 12. Research? She repeated. Yes, the science division wants to understand how it reacts to combat. It could help us develop better defense systems. Rhea's stomach turned. With respect, sir, that's not a lab specimen. It's a living being. It saved lives. Kyle's expression didn't change. And that's why it will save more once we learn how. Eli clung to Claw, panic rising in his eyes. The honey badger growled low, stepping in front of him. Marines tightened their grips on their rifles. Rhea stepped between them. Sir, you order your men to shoot, and this entire deck will be painted red before the first bullet lands. For a moment, the hangar was silent. Kyle studied her, then gave a thin smile. You've grown soft, Sergeant. He turned to his aide. Prepare containment. If the creature resists, stun it. They tried. It didn't go well. The first guard aimed a shock baton. The honey badger lunged before the man could swing. Armor shredded, weapon clattered to the floor, and the rest scattered like frightened recruits. It didn't kill. It only destroyed their courage. In the confusion, Eli ran. Rhea followed, shouting over the alarms. Stand down! Let them go! Security drones poured into the hallways, red lights flashing. Claw moved like a blur, tearing through barriers, sparks lighting his path. Eli ducked under a closing blast door just in time, his tiny frame slipping through where grown soldiers couldn't. Rhea caught up, breath burning, adrenaline surging. Eli, stop! He turned, eyes wide with tears. They'll hurt him. They always hurt things they don't understand. Rhea didn't have the heart to argue. Then we'll make them understand. Behind them, more soldiers came running. The ship that once felt like a safe haven now pulsed with danger. In its heart, a child and a creature born from Earth's wilderness stood alone against an empire of fear. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched, endless and cold. Somewhere among them, the Dominion regrouped, spreading its own version of the story, how a single human child had turned their warriors into ghosts. Across worlds, new leaders began to ask the same question. If this was what a child could do with one Earth beast, what would happen if humanity truly got angry? Rhea knew the answer, and the galaxy was about to find out. The alarms didn't stop for hours aboard the Resolute Dawn. Doors locked, red lights flashed, and orders shouted through the ship's comms turned into chaos. Everyone wanted the same thing: find the boy, contain the creature, avoid more bloodshed. But fear ran faster than any soldier. Rhea led Eli and Claw through the maintenance tunnels beneath Deck 12. The air was thick with smoke from damaged circuits, the narrow walls pulsing with emergency lights. Every few meters, she stopped to listen. The thump of boots echoed far behind them, too close for comfort. Eli's breathing was sharp and fast. He was trying to be brave, but he was just a kid who'd lost everything. Rhea placed a hand on his shoulder. Stay close. Don't run unless I tell you. He nodded, clutching Claw's fur. The honey badger moved ahead, silent and alert. Its fur shimmered faintly under the flickering lights, claws tapping the floor with quiet precision. It looked more like a shadow-given form than an animal. They reached a service bay overlooking the cargo hangar. Through the glass window, Rhea saw armed soldiers assembling near the drop pods. Admiral Kale stood among them, expression tight and cold. He was speaking to a holographic projection, a group of alien envoys flickering in blue light. Their scaled faces twisted with disgust. You see, Kale said, even our own colonies are becoming unstable. If this human-animal link can't be controlled, then it must be contained. We can't risk the galaxy turning this into another weapon, one of the aliens hissed. You humans breed chaos. You brought beasts from your death worlds into our peace, Kale replied sharply. Our peace was shattered long before that boy was born. If you want to fear something, fear the Dominion. They started this war. But Rhea knew better. The war wasn't about borders anymore. It was about what humanity represented. The other species saw them as unpredictable, emotional, dangerous. And now, thanks to Eli and his creature, that danger had a face. She motioned to Eli. We're leaving the ship. He frowned. Where will we go? Somewhere safer than here. Maybe the outer colonies, someplace they won't follow, Claw growled softly, staring down through the glass. The alien holograms shimmered and disappeared. Kale barked orders. Soldiers began spreading through the hangar, forming squads. Rhea knew they'd have minutes, maybe less, before someone tracked them. She found a maintenance hatch and pried it open. The three of them crawled through the narrow shaft, dropping down near the shuttle bay's outer corridor. A security drone spotted them instantly. Its red eye flared, scanning. Unauthorized personnel detected. Rhea fired. Sparks burst as the drone collapsed. The sound echoed through the metal halls, summoning more trouble. Claw snarled and charged ahead, slashing open another hatch with brutal force. They spilled out into the shuttle deck just as the bulkhead doors began to seal. A pilot shouted, "Hey, you can't be here!" Rhea aimed her rifle. "We need that shuttle. Now." The pilot hesitated, staring at the small, blood-stained honey badger and the calm, steady child beside it. Whatever he saw in Eli's eyes made him step aside. "Take it, but you'll never make it past the blockade." Rhea grinned grimly. "Watch us!" The shuttle engines roared to life. The blast doors opened just enough for them to slip through before slamming shut again. The resolute Dawn shrank behind them, a giant of metal and fire floating in orbit. Kale's voice crackled through the comms. "Sergeant Rhea, you're disobeying direct orders. You're putting every human fleet at risk. Return immediately." Rhea switched off the transmission. She looked back at Eli. "We just became outlaws, kid." He gave a small, brave smile. "Then we're free." Claw climbed beside him, curling up like a watchful guardian. The stars stretched before them, endless and cruel. Rhea took a deep breath and punched the engines to full. Across the galaxy, the story grew faster than the truth. On alien news channels, they called it the Incident on Dawn. Some claimed the humans had created a monster that even they couldn't control. Others said the creature spoke, that it tore through soldiers like paper and vanished into the void. On planets under Dominion control, soldiers whispered before battle, "Never harm a human child. Never touch their beasts." The fear became legend. A week later, in the dusty outpost of Draskor 7, a group of alien miners found their settlement under attack by rogue Dominion raiders. When all hope was lost, a small ship descended from the sky. The raiders fled before it even landed. Rumors spread that they'd seen glowing eyes in the dark, something small, fast, and merciless. Rhea and Eli didn't stay long. They never did. Every time they helped someone, more soldiers came hunting. They were no longer fugitives, they were symbols. The child who defied an empire, the honey badger that made the galaxy afraid. On the ship's console, Rhea watched encrypted transmissions ripple across human frequencies, a message repeated again and again, always from different sources. If they threaten one of ours, remind them what fear means. She smiled faintly. Humanity had a reputation now, not of cruelty, but of loyalty so fierce it burned the stars. Claw lifted his head, sensing something distant. Out there, beyond the rim, new forces were moving, both human and alien. And somewhere in the darkness, the Dominion was preparing a response. But this time, they wouldn't just be fighting soldiers. They'd be fighting a legend. Across the galaxy, the story of the human child and his beast was no longer rumor. It was a storm. Every planet with a signal had heard it in some form. Some called it the Boy and the Death Beast. Others, the Wrath of Earth. But no matter the name, the meaning was the same. Never touch what a human protects. In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, panic grew behind polished speeches. Leaders of countless alien species gathered under the shimmering lights of Alaris Prime, a city so vast its towers reached the clouds. The council chamber hummed with tension. News feeds displayed holo clips of wrecked Dominion ships, torn armor, and blurred footage of a small four-legged shape moving faster than any weapon. A tall, scaled envoy slammed his claws on the table. "You let this happen! You let the humans spread their monsters across our colonies!" Another, smaller alien with silver tendrils hissed back. "Do not speak as if they trained that thing. Even humans wouldn't create something so savage." An elderly scholar from the Varn Consortium adjusted his lenses and said softly, "Savage? No, loyal. The creature fights because it loves the child. That is what makes it terrifying." Silence fell. Every leader knew he was right. Machines could be predicted, soldiers could be reasoned with, but loyalty could not be controlled. And humanity, with all its emotion and wild empathy, was now seen as the most unpredictable force in the stars. Meanwhile, far from Ilaris Prime, Rhea, Eli, and Claw lived in the shadows of forgotten worlds. They slept in old bunkers, traded favors with smugglers, and helped small colonies defend themselves against Dominion raids. Every time they fought, the legend grew. Every time they disappeared, their story grew louder. One night, as cold winds howled outside a ruined outpost on Kefir 2, Rhea sat by the campfire cleaning her rifle. The boy slept against Claw's side, the creature breathing slow and deep like a living engine of fury. The firelight reflected off its fur, catching every scar, every reminder of battle. Rhea looked at them both and whispered, "You've changed the galaxy, kid." Eli stirred, rubbing his eyes. "I didn't mean to." "No one ever does," she said. "But sometimes history doesn't ask for permission." He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Do you think they're scared of us?" Rhea smiled faintly. "They're not scared of us. They're scared of what we stand for." Before dawn, a coded transmission came through. It was from a rebel human cell, one of dozens that had sprung up since Kareth 9. The message was simple. "The Dominion is moving. Fleet gathering near Dras Gate. They're calling it Operation Cleanse. You're their priority target." Rhea shut off the screen. Her jaw tightened. "They're coming for you, Eli." The boy didn't flinch. He looked down at Claw, who had already risen, ears perked and teeth bared. "Then we stop them," Eli said. Rhea stared at him. He wasn't the frightened child she'd found in the sand anymore. His eyes were sharp, calm, almost old. "You know what that means?" she asked. He nodded. "They'll never stop until they're scared enough to stay away," she sighed. "You sound like a soldier." "I'm just tired of running," he said quietly. By sunrise, they were airborne again, their small ship cutting through blue clouds toward the war front. Below, old battlefields lay silent, rusted tanks half buried in ash, burned forests where cities once stood. The galaxy looked exhausted, full of ghosts and machines that had forgotten who built them. In orbit above Dras Gate, the Dominion fleet gathered like a swarm, ships shaped like black daggers, their hulls glowing red from reactor heat. On their command ship, General Kor watched the tactical display. "Find them," he ordered. "That child and his beast are a stain on our honor." "I want them erased." One officer hesitated. "Sir, what if the stories are true?" Kor's voice turned to ice. "Stories don't kill soldiers. Bullets do." But deep inside, even he didn't believe his own words. Hours later, sensors picked up a small vessel entering the system, Rhea's ship. Eli watched the Dominion fleet stretch across the stars. "That's a lot of ships," he said. Rhea smirked. "Yeah, but we've got something they don't." "What's that?" "Heart." As the enemy ships began to move, Claw growled low, pressing his paws against the viewport. The sound was strange, more than animal almost, aware. Rhea checked the weapon systems, though she knew it wouldn't matter much against a fleet this size. They weren't here to win. They were here to show the galaxy what fear truly meant. Down below, hidden sensors and relay stations across dozens of worlds began to record. Civilian frequencies, military satellites, even black market news feeds, all started streaming the same broadcast, the live image of one small human vessel facing a Dominion armada. Billions watched. The boy placed a hand on Claw's back and whispered, "Ready?" The creature answered with a snarl that shook the ship's hull. Rhea closed her eyes and muttered, "Let them learn." Outside, the stars turned red as the first plasma volleys fired. The ship dove, engines screaming. The battle for Dras Gate had begun. And before it was over, the galaxy would no longer doubt what humans were capable of when someone threatened their own. The Dominion fleet stretched across the black sea of space, thousands of warships glinting like blades beneath the light of a dying star. Inside their command ship, General Kor watched the small human vessel drifting toward them, a lone dot against the endless dark. He almost pitied them. "Almost! Destroy them!" he ordered, weapons charged. Beams of plasma ignited the void. The first volley hit, or should have. The sensors blinked, confused. The human ship was gone. Rhea pulled the controls hard, her voice steady even as alarms screamed. "Hold on!" The small craft rolled between shock waves, slipping under the fire of ships 1,000 times its size. Metal groaned, energy shields flared, and somehow they survived the opening barrage. Eli stood behind her, hands gripping the console. Claw crouched beside him, muscles coiled, fur bristling under the red emergency lights. The creature didn't seem afraid. It was watching the stars like a predator stalking prey. "Rhea," Eli said quietly. "They don't understand what's coming." "No," she answered. "They don't." Outside the viewport, Dominion fighters swarmed like insects, their engines leaving trails of crimson light. Rhea locked the targeting system and fired. Twin plasma bolts ripped through the first wave, tearing ships apart. But for every one destroyed, 3 more appeared. She knew they couldn't outgun them. The plan wasn't to win. It was to remind the galaxy that humans never went quietly. "Claw," Eli whispered, kneeling beside his companion. "It's time." The honey badger turned its gaze toward the front viewport. For a second, the ship's lights flickered as if reacting to something unseen. Rhea frowned. "What's it doing?" Before anyone could answer, the creature roared. The sound wasn't just a noise. It was a vibration that shook through metal, through energy fields, through the very air of the ship. The roar echoed across the comm frequencies, distorting every Dominion channel. Pilots screamed over the static. Their targeting systems crashed, sensors shorted, and one by one their ships began spinning out of formation. "What is that?" shouted an officer aboard the Dominion flagship. "It's disrupting our systems!" Kor slammed his fist against the console. "It's just interference, fix it!" But deep inside the honey badger's chest, something pulsed. A faint blue light spreading like veins of energy across its fur. Rhea's eyes widened. "It's linked with the ship. It's controlling the systems." The small craft's engines surged beyond their limits. Plasma trails spiraled behind them as they dove straight through the heart of the fleet. The ship moved like a living thing, dodging fire, weaving between capital ships. Claw growled again, and every Dominion vessel within range flickered with the same blue light, then shut down, powerless. Eli grinned through the chaos. "He's showing them," Rhea whispered. "He's showing them what fear really means." On the Dominion command bridge, Kor's crew panicked. "Our entire formation gone dark!" Kor stared at the tactical map. Dozens of ships drifted, dead in space. "It's impossible," he muttered. "One human child and an animal, how?" The image feed from his sensor drones zoomed in, the small ship gliding between wrecks, its hull reflecting the fires around it. On its nose, faintly visible through smoke and plasma glare, was a symbol, the mark of Earth's old defense forces. Every species in the galaxy was watching. Broadcasts streamed the battle live across thousands of worlds. What they saw wasn't victory, it was defiance. The human ship emerged from the clouds of debris, flying directly toward the Dominion flagship. Kor shouted, "Fire everything!" Dozens of cannons unleashed hell. But the blasts missed by fractions of seconds, as if the ship knew where they'd aim before they fired. The honey badger's low growl filled the air again. The blue energy from its body surged through the ship's systems, forming a glowing barrier around the hull. Rhea looked at Eli. "He's burning himself out." "I know," Eli whispered. "But he says it's okay." Rhea didn't ask how he knew. Some things didn't need words. The human vessel struck the Dominion flagship broadside. The impact wasn't an explosion of metal. It was a ripple of energy, a shock wave that disabled every ship within range. Lights died, engines failed. The fleet went silent. In the darkness that followed, the only sound was the static of broken comms and one faint, eerie growl echoing through the void. Then, the human ship reappeared, still intact, drifting but alive. Rhea gasped, scanning for Eli. The boy was on the floor, his hand resting on Claw's side. The creature was still breathing, eyes dim but steady. "You did it," Eli murmured. "You made them stop." Across the galaxy, countless viewers, soldiers, civilians, leaders, sat frozen before their screens. The message was clear, and it burned itself into history. Do not threaten a human child. On Alaris Prime, council members sat in silence as the transmission ended. No one dared to speak. The war had not ended, but something deeper had changed. Fear had a new shape, and it wasn't an army or a fleet. It was a bond between a child and a creature from a world too wild for reason. Rhea guided the ship toward a nearby moon, engines sputtering. "We're alive," she said softly. Eli smiled weakly. Claw made them remember. The honey badger closed its eyes, resting at last. Its heartbeat echoed faintly through the ship. And somewhere beyond the stars, the Dominion's High Council gathered in secret, their faces grim. They didn't talk of victory or conquest anymore, only of one haunting truth whispered across every world. Fear the humans. Fear their beasts. The war ended quietly, not with a treaty, not with parades, but with silence. Days after the Battle of Dras Gate, the Dominion fleet drifted like ghosts across the void. Thousands of ships, dead and dark, their crews too afraid to power up again. The galaxy's strongest armada had been stopped by one small ship, one human child, and one creature from a forgotten world. The transmission of that final moment, the roar that silenced the stars, spread everywhere. It was replayed on alien channels, studied by scientists, whispered in schools, and feared in military briefings. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a curse. Rhea sat beside the boy in the medical bay of a neutral outpost. The lights were dim, the machines humming softly. Eli lay on the bed, his eyes open but distant, staring at the ceiling where the stars shimmered through the window. Claw slept beside him, bandaged and scarred but alive. "You did something no one's ever done," Rhea said quietly. Eli turned his head. "We didn't mean to scare everyone." Rhea smiled sadly. "Sometimes the only way to make peace is to remind the galaxy what real strength looks like." Outside the window, the first human relief ships arrived. No weapons, no soldiers, only healers, engineers, and diplomats. For the first time in years, fleets moved not to conquer, but to rebuild. Eli was too young to understand the scale of what he'd changed. But everywhere, people were talking. On Dominion worlds, soldiers whispered of the boy who commanded the beast of Earth. On neutral colonies, children wore tiny badges shaped like a honey badger's head. Even in the Galactic Council, the old alliances began to crumble. Fear had united them for centuries. Now, something else began to take its place. Respect. Weeks later, Rhea stood in the council chamber of Alaris Prime. The same room that had once shaken with anger now sat in uneasy calm. The counselors waited as she stepped forward, a hollow image of Eli and Claw hovering behind her. "This is not a story of monsters," she said. "It's a story of loyalty, of what happens when the smallest heart refuses to break. You've called humanity dangerous. Maybe we are, but our danger doesn't come from hate. It comes from love, the kind that protects no matter the cost." Her words hung in the air. Even the most hardened counselors stayed silent. Later, Rhea returned to the outpost where Eli and Claw rested. The boy was outside, sitting under a pale moon. The honey badger was beside him, watching the horizon as if expecting another war. Rhea sat down next to them. "The council agreed to peace talks," she said. "They want to make you a symbol." Eli frowned. "I don't want to be a symbol. I just want to go home." "You will," she said softly. "But the galaxy will always remember you, Eli. You and him." Claw raised his head, sniffing the air, and gave a low, rumbling purr. The boy smiled and stroked his fur. "He just wants to sleep," Eli said. "Then let him," Rhea replied. "He's earned it." The stars stretched endlessly above them. For the first time in generations, they seemed peaceful, not burning with war, but glowing with quiet promise. Months later, a monument appeared on Kareth 9, the place where it had all begun. It was simple, a child's small hand resting on the head of a honey badger. Beneath it, a single inscription in every galactic language read, "Never threaten what a human loves." The galaxy took that lesson to heart, and as centuries passed, people still told the tale, around campfires, in schools, across fleets traveling the dark. The story of how one child and his wild companion reminded an entire galaxy that fear was nothing next to love, and that humanity, for all its chaos and courage, would always protect its own. Far away under a quiet sun, Eli and Claw lived in peace, the boy older now, the beast slower, but both content. When travelers came and asked for stories of the war, Eli would only smile and say, "It wasn't about war. It was about family," and the galaxy, wiser for its scars, finally understood.